Alrighty, we are here with the Jeff from Jeff's Bagel Run. Jeff Perera, co-founder and vice president of Jeff's Bagel Run, which is continuing its run across not only Florida now, but additional states as well. Really cool, innovative bagel company with tons of great flavors and some of the most delicious sounding cream cheese I've ever heard about. Jeff, thank you so much for joining. How you doing today?
Oh man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today. Super excited.
Of course, of course. Same here. So we're gonna get to all things bagels, but before that, I know that your story, at least for this company, starts a little bit after you got laid off. But before we get to the actual like bagel idea, what can you share about like kind of how you handled it internally, the transition from like being like working full time to oh my god, I'm jobless right now.
Yeah, it was pretty it was shocking. I had worked over 25 years of my life and I was working when I was in middle school. I had always had a job. I always was doing something, was always busy, and to have a meeting with my boss to be told that, I was being laid off was um pretty tough. I didn't know what I was going to do. Danielle, who's my wife and business partner at Just Bagel Run, she was a stay-at-home mom at the time, at home taking care of our daughter and our son. And it's like, hey, coming home. And she's like, what happened? I was like, I lost my job. It's kind of scary. You didn't know what to do. Um, but you find a way. And it's a very interesting moment to be in because you never think it's going to happen to you, and then it does. And when it does, you're just like, okay, well, I'll just take the next step. And so in that moment, I started looking for a job. She had been talking about going back to work and started communicating with her former company, and she landed the job first. And she said, you know what? Why don't you just take a break? You become the stay-at-home parent. I'll go back to work. We switched roles, and I'd like to say I never went back to work. I was like retired since I lost my job.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah,
Um, how did how did your wife and family react when you kind of came home a little bit early that day?
they were shocked. It was kind of like disbelief, like, oh, really? That how did that happen? Like, how does? And this was August of 2019, so it was pre-pandemic where there were significant layoffs, and people were obviously a lot of people were dealing with it at that time, but like pre-pandemic, and I had always been like a great performer in all the jobs I'd ever had. I'd never been a part of a restructuring or any type of layoff before, and so it was just a shock. I think everybody was just like kind of like, huh, well, what do we do? And there was like a little bit of a severance package, and so we had some time to figure out what the next thing was going to be. But it's it is kind of scary when you don't know when that next paycheck is coming.
On that note, what advice can you share for anybody who's been laid off like that?
This is a great question because I've had people ask me this, and it's changed over the years. So in the beginning, it was, stay positive, you'll find something. And then
Make
I
sure you get the fist pump in
fist
there.
pump
You have
had
to
to
do
be
it
in
while
it.
you
Yeah,
say
yeah.
it.
Stay positive. And so um, as the pandemic stretched out through the end of 2020, 2021, and the economy was what it was, and people were having trouble finding the work that they were maybe previously doing, the conversation kind of changed, and it became more of a like, well, what are you passionate about? What do you like to do? The internet is an incredible tool for people of all ages, and you can find something that you're passionate about that you like doing, and you can probably find a way to monetize that. And so it became more of like a, what do you like to do, and how can that become something that pays you? And also now, as I move into like my fifth year as a bagel baker. I don't know, short,
Whatever. I feel
whatever
like
I do. Yeah,
you're whatever. However you
I'm the
describe it, you're
expert.
the guy.
However, yeah, bagel master. I tell people I was like, you have to measure your success against yourself, not against other people. And so I've changed a lot of like how that answer is like stay positive to, what are you passionate about? What brings you joy to like success doesn't have a yardstick. It's really just like the expectations you set for yourself, and comparing what you do to someone else is just gonna steal that away from you.
Oh yeah, we can totally get behind that. I think like I just feel like that the whole keeping up with the Joneses thing is so dangerous and clearly not good for mental health, and it just kind of makes you it can make you upset if you think about it, only think about other people that way. And way too often we forget of like look how far I've come in 2 years, look how far I've come in 5 years. It's like I was a totally different person. Like it's when you think about it that way, is a wonderful and delicious way to segue it, to go about it.
100%.
So let's talk Jeff's Bagel Run. When did this bagel idea first serve itself on your plate?
Yeah, so bagels have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I was born in the Northeast, grew up in South Florida for, always having access to good bagels. My wife Danielle is a Long Islander, um, spent time in the Northeast as well. We together would seek out bagels when we were in new cities or if we were trying to find a great breakfast spot. And it just became a part of our weekly routine, and we'd go on these bagel runs. And when I got laid off, she was worried about me. She was concerned for my mental health, for my ability to like stay busy. And she said, why don't you make me a bagel? And I was like, I mean, I had zero culinary experience. I'd never baked anything that didn't come out of a box. Take and bake cookies were about as good as it got for me. And I was like, sure, let's learn how to make a bagel. And so I dug into it. I was really interested in learning something new, getting my hands dirty. That tactile experience of forming and making dough was therapeutic. Um, that was a that was, I guess, when the bagel run was born. Um, it wasn't until later that year, like November of 2019, that we actually sold our first bagels. After I posted a menu on Instagram and Facebook to my neighborhood to see if they'd be interested in buying some bagels from me. So.
All right, can you take us to like the really early days of learning to make bagels? Because as a not yet bagel master myself, it seems incredibly intimidating to make sure they're actually good.
Terrifying. I mean, completely terrifying. I got my hands stuck in the first batch of dough that I ever made. I was, it was so wet and sticky that I couldn't get my hands out of it. And I'm like, hey babe, I'm like, come over here, I need your help. And she's like, what? I'm like, I think there's a number on the back of the flour. The King Arthur flour bag had like a baker's hotline. And I was like, can you grab my phone and dial it so that I can talk to them and see why my dough is so sticky and wet? Because like this is what it looks like in any of the videos that I've seen on YouTube. And so I called the baker's hotline on my very first day of baking bagels, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to make some bagels. And the sweet woman on the other end of the line was like, "Oh, she's like, I'd hate for you to waste your dough." She's like, "Try adding a few tablespoons of flour; it should help it." And I just kind of massaged it and worked it, and I finally got my hands free, and I made some of the ugliest, tasteless bagels I'd ever made in my life on that first day. But they got better. Danielle is an incredibly good critic. She has an excellent palate for bagels as a New Yorker, and she just kept refining and refining the palette, and I loved it. I really enjoyed what I was doing. So I was making 5, 6 dozen bagels a day from home. I was like mad scientist. I had glass bowls with saran wrap over the top with the recipes written on it, times. Like I had charts, I had papers, I had ingredient lists. It was a lot of fun. And for me, it kept me busy, kept my mind active, kept my hands busy, and gave me something to do. And each time she came home and the bagel got a little better, it's like gave me a reward. It's like, hey, congratulations, this bagel's not as garbage as the last one. Try to add a little,
Gold star.
yeah, bronze stars at first. Took a few months to get to gold stars, but we, once I got the recipe right, then I started perfecting the idea of like how do you roll a good bagel, how do you get the shape, the color, and there's so many facets to it. It is it's a bit of art, but it's also a lot of science. And so I read a lot of textbooks. I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I say textbooks, not like cookbooks, because when you get into bakery texts, they're like this thick, and it's like reading science. It's crazy. This many grams of that, and do this, and the temperature has to be, and I think it's pretty wild.
It's like
Yeah.
well, yeah, shout out the word wild, appreciate that. But it's like the tallest books in the world that you're dealing with. It's an uphill battle. Just from a so we can get the full picture from a timing
Yeah.
standpoint. How quickly was it from like first bagel to when you were doing like 5, 6 batches a day like that?
Um, so I started making bagels in September of 19. So I was laid off August 13th, 2019, started making bagels like the beginning of September. I was making probably 3 or 4 batches a day in the test kitchen phase where I was like just trying to get better. So all through September, October, as I finally got the recipe right in November, I was trying to repeat it. So making 3, 4 dozen a day just to see if I could do it. And Danielle would come home and from work and she would taste the bagel. She was like, "Yep, tastes like it did yesterday." And I just Ziploc them and freeze them. And then she's like, "You got to get these bagels out of the house. We got no room. What are you gonna do with them?" And so she said, I can give them to my friends. Maybe give them to the neighbors, see if they'd be interested. And we started giving them away, and people loved them. And they're like, "I'd buy these from you." And I was like, "Nobody's buying bagels from some guy who's like a stay-at-home dad who just learned how to bake like a month ago in his kitchen." But I was like, "Yeah, it sounds like a great idea." So I made a Facebook page and an Instagram page and posted some pictures and put a menu up, and I got like 4 orders. It was awesome.
What
That,
was it
that was like
from?
November of 2019, so September to November, so about
Wow.
3 months. Yeah.
What was it? And it is like we've talked about this with many guests. Like, there's never been a better time to learn a new skill, just because there's so much available at our
Yeah.
fingertips. YouTube's obviously huge, but podcasts as well, books as well, billboards if you want to look at. No, I'm just kidding. But like, uh, was there a particular like? I'm not going to make you remember the name of the video, but a particular like type of video or something on
Hmm.
YouTube that was kind of like a big inflection point for you learning how to do this.
Um, in the process, I was also making some bread. We love challah bread, so challah
Yeah.
bread is like
Oh, what's
it's.
not to love?
I
Yeah.
mean, what's not to love about challah bread? If you don't know what challah bread is, for some of your listeners, um, it's like an egg-based like kind of like sweet bread. It's always yellow in color, has a nice golden crust, but its distinguishing characteristic is it's a braided loaf. And so I had said I should try to learn to make challah bread. This would be good too. So I was playing with challah bread, and in the process of learning how to make those long coils to braid the bread is when I really learned how to roll the bagel dough. So it was interesting. It wasn't even a bagel video that really gave me the skills that I needed to fine tune the shape. And I mean, I was watching people make bagel videos where they took this ball of dough and they pushed their thumbs through the center and kind of stretched the dough, and
Mm.
they always shrunk back up and they looked like rolls. They never looked like bagels. And then finally, I got the actual rolling motion with my hands from the challah bread video. So that was pretty cool.
So what, without revealing all your tricks, and in terms of secret recipe, I always think of Plankton and SpongeBob. Never wants to. He's always trying to get Mr. Krabs' secret recipe.
Always, always.
But what is like something that's really really key if you're going to make a good bagel?
I think you have to have quality ingredients, and it starts with your flour. It has to be a high gluten, high protein flour. And bagels really only have 5 ingredients. It's the flour, water, salt, malt, and yeast. That's it. Those are the 5 ingredients that we have. And I think if you're using high quality ingredients for all of them, and you are doing a proper um, it's called a fermentation, but like a proof. If you're doing a proper fermentation or a proper proof, and you're getting the right rise in your bagels, and you boil them, you have to boil them. If you don't boil a bagel, it's not a bagel. It's just brown bread. So yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard this growing up in the East Coast. I've heard it like a million times. Everybody says the bagels are so good in New York because the water. It's like the best water up here. How
Total
how
myth.
important how important is water in bagels?
0% important. It's a total myth.
Ooh,
The
shots fired.
shots fired. I challenge. We went to Bagel Fest in New York City in 2022, and we placed third overall in the plain bagel blind taste test. And uh, the two shops that beat us were neither of them were in New York City. So it's like, I mean, I think New York City has a great bagel. Bagel culture in America started in New York City, and the reason that I'm even doing this is because I love going to New York City and eating bagels. And there wouldn't be a bagel business if it wasn't for the people of the old timers, the old bagel union and the rollers or whatever those bagel baker unions that they created. They did, but it's water is odorless, colorless, and tasteless, right? So and when you start to put it into a dough and you add other ingredients, then you bake it for a period of time, I think you just lose some of that flavor. Sure, there's minerals and like you can tell the difference between drinking like a Dasani and an Avian or a Perrier or something like that, but if you put that in the bagel water, you wouldn't know. It's just
For
lost.
for a split second when you said Perrier, I thought you were referring to your last name. I was like, that's
No,
not how it's
no, no.
pronounced, but
That'd be a crazy
figured you.
connection.
Well, uh, that swimmingly brings us to. I'm curious, like how you took this thing from like. I guess you got the in addition to getting your wife's thumbs up and her taste buds approval. Once you started getting family and friends like that approval, like it started becoming more public. Um, from like an operations or distribution side, if you could even call it
Yeah.
back then, what did that look like? Like, how did you start to scale up and get these sellable for more people?
Yeah. So part of what I was doing was I was taking pictures and sending them to Danielle like every day while I was making bagels. Like, here's my dough, here's my bagels. Like, take a look at the work I've done today, while she was off to work and I was at home. Um, and I also was just documenting that along the way on Instagram and Facebook. And so I built the social media presence around like my journey of making bagels. And then once we got to the point where we realized we could probably sell these and we had all the right licenses and insurances and we felt comfortable after talking to our accountants and stuff like that we should do this, I just posted a menu, like a simple static image menu, bagels for sale, buy six for $10. Here's my flavors. And people would DM me, and I would get a DM, and I would put it into a spreadsheet, and then I would bake the bagels on the day that they wanted them. That was in November of 19. December of 19, we got a little bit of traction from neighbors and people, like word of mouth started to spread. And when I was maybe making 7 orders of bagels, I was now making like 40 orders of bagels by like the end of December. So it was a pretty good jump. This is in a week's period of time. We're not talking about like per day. This is like in a week. So it was like still not a lot of volume. Beginning of 2020, sort of like 4 months into this whole thing, um, a food writer for the Orlando Sentinel had got bagels from my house, like kind of undercover, and then like outed
Uh,
herself and was like, "Hey, by the way, I'm writing a whole article about how Orlando is a bagel desert and us people from the Northeast can't get a good bagel, but like I found your bagels, they're really delicious, and there's a couple other people that are doing some things like similarly, and like I'm gonna write a whole story about it." I'm like, "Great." She wrote a story. We blew up a little bit more. Of course, I'm documenting that it's still all on social media. TikTok was starting to kind of bubble, so I was starting to make videos. I was doing everything, and I got an influencer here or there who were like, "Oh man, your bagels are awesome," and they shared it, and then their followers picked it up, and so I went from like 0 followers to 50 to 600 pretty quickly. And when you have 600 people who want to buy bagels off your porch, it gets pretty like dicey. Like, I mean, it's a lot of messages. Like, I'm back and forth, and then the pandemic set in, and people are like bored at home, doom scrolling, and they hit like, who's this guy selling bagels? And then like I post my menu on, Sunday night at 7 p.m. and I get 400, 300, 400 messages in my inbox. And it's like, hey, good luck filtering through this, like first come, first serve. And I don't know, Danielle was furloughed from her job, so she was helping me like manage orders and doing all this stuff at home. We took so many orders in one weekend that we couldn't fulfill them for like a month. So we didn't take orders for like a whole month. It took like 28 days straight of baking and rolling dough at home. And this was a lot of bagels. We were now doing like 30 dozen a day, which was a lot. I had 5 refrigerators in my garage to stack dough so it could ferment overnight in the fridge. And it became challenging. We had bins on the front porch where people would put, I put their like A through F, and if you're, I just put your bag in the bin, and you'd come by, you'd find your name, and you'd take your bag and you'd leave. And we did that for a while. We started doing a couple farmers markets later in 2020 when the world opened up a little bit more, when Florida opened up because
right.
hashtag Florida. And we did some farmers markets, and word spread, and we had lines, and people were waiting. And by February of 21, I know I'm moving fast through the whole story, but by February 21, we were doing a Valentine's Day market, and it poured down rain. The whole market shut down, but nobody got out of our line. Like we always had a
Wow.
line early. Nobody got out of our line. We showed up, we unloaded the bagels under the cover of like umbrellas and tarps and sold bagels to soaking wet patrons for about an hour while it poured down rain. And then we got home soaking wet, and I was like, we have a business. We should do something with this. I need to get out of the house at the very least. Like we should move to a storefront, do the same thing just from a storefront. You keep your job. And then she's like, okay. And it took a few months to find the space. Finally, someone leased to us because we had no assets, no business, no collateral. When they leased to us, we announced that we had signed a lease, and we thought would try to raise some money through a Kickstarter campaign to see if the community would support us. And in 24 hours, we raised like $28,000. And we're like, okay, this is going to be real. Danielle really dug into the whole idea of setting the shop up with me, and she's like, she was like not loving her job at the time because retail post COVID was a tough place to work, and she just quit and said, let's go full bagel, and we just figured it out. It's
Full
full
bagel.
bagel. She went full
It's
bagel,
the new
and
full Nelson. Yeah.
we opened it. We opened in July of 2021. Summer 21s, we opened our first store.
Well, congrats on all that. That's like, I mean, I guess that's why you're here. This is like just an incredible case study of entrepreneurship and just kind of like hitting milestones one thing at a time and adjusting on the fly and just doing things in like a natural, like an organic, genuine way of
Yeah.
being like, hey, I'm a guy making bagels. Here's what I'm making this week. Come check it out. And I think obviously with the power of social media and the internet today, the fact that you were yourself willing to be so open and along the journey, especially in those early days, there's no question that that contributed to this. What I don't know if it's been officially described a cult following, but clearly passionate fans.
I've heard cult
Um,
following before, so I'll take it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll give it to you. So I think a lot with your journey so far. You hear the term all the time: "Change is the only constant," and it's especially relevant for entrepreneurs. But I think just naturally as humans, we hate change. Like it's really hard to get ourselves to adjust and grow. Like it takes a long, long time. Whereas in your case, you've had to change like exponentially in terms of just like making a few batches at home to, oh, now we got a storefront, and fast forward, now you have multiple storefronts in multiple states. How, like, mentally yourself, well, I guess you and your wife have as
Yeah.
well, how have you guys kind of kept your foot on the gas and kept keeping yourself open to evolve like that?
I think when you start a business and you set out to do it for yourself and think this is a way for me to make a living and provide for my family and live a life that we want to live, you go in with one mindset. You go in with this like, I can do this every day of my life. It makes me happy. We took vacations. Like we would close the store for a week and just like go away. Like sign up on the door. Sorry, shop's closed. We're enjoying time with our family. And people were okay with that. And they came back the next week as hungry for bagels as ever. And um, as we grew to a second shop, it became a little bit harder because now you're relying on other people and you've got like leaders and managers helping you do other things. And I'm not baking every bagel anymore. And so now I have to like instill this empowerment into this like baker to say, hey, this is your bagel. Like, yes, it's our recipe, but like you rolled this, you baked this, you served it to the customer. You're the one that's creating this relationship now with the food, with this person. So it's really about you. And I think Danielle and I just really focused on making sure that our team understood that while Jeff's Bagel Run might have my name on it, it might be our business, it's as much theirs and it's their community as well. And when that customer comes in, it's like, hey, Jeff, it's good to see you. Do you want your, cold brew and your rosemary salt bagel? Like those are things that you just have to like, you have to know those people and start building those relationships and do that. As we've evolved past two stores, we took a business partner in 2023 to help grow the business, expert in franchising, had built a business in the past franchising, and um, saw the path for us to really grow this that way. It became more about like, how do we select great franchisees? How do we find people who want to operate a business in a way that we've been operating that is successful? And that's a different mindset. So now you're switching, like, I bake bagels every day to like, now I find and select great franchisees, right? So it's a totally different skill set, but it's fun. It's learning. And it kind of goes back to that first day. Like the first day I got my hand stuck in dough, I had no idea what I was doing. I've never franchised a business before. Like this is the first time I've ever done that too. So I wouldn't say I've got my hand stuck in dough franchising because we've got a great partner and we've got great resources around us. And so there's a lot less like, need to call the hotline, but we definitely are learning along the way and it's fun.
And for those listening, Jeff's hands have been stuck in dough this entire interview, so it's pretty funny to come full
That
circle
would have
back.
been,
Now,
could you imagine? That would have been so fun.
he's the hands and dough guy. So that flows really well to another tasty segment. There's room for lots of puns here. I've
So
been
many
slacking,
puns. It's so good.
but I, I'm curious, like how there's a couple prongs of this of how you've differentiated your brand, and so like one of those routes is that actual like your bagels and your cream cheese and just like scrolling through your site and seeing the daily specials and the offerings you have like very quickly I was like wow I've never seen a bagel shop that has these flavors like really really cool really really creative. It's like you've seen, growing up we loved watching those like food network specials about craziest donuts and craziest food
Yeah.
places like that, and like I feel like there's kind of a culture like that in the donut space but you don't see that as much in the bagel space. What's kind of your philosophy as a company in terms of like experimenting and trying out new bagel flavors and cream cheese flavors?
Yeah, we're fascinated with anything that we can bring from a flavor profile perspective that's into the texture and crispy, crunchy outside and like chewy, fluffy inside of a bagel, right? So I think about um, I think about the popcorn flavored Jelly Bellies all the time. Like you bite into it and you can almost like your taste buds like salivate like you have like the butter on your tongue, right?
Yeah, you
But
instantly start watching a movie. It's crazy.
100%. But you're chewing a jelly bean and it's squishy and it's sweet and it has that same, it's distinctly a jelly bean, but yet it's popcorn. And so whenever I go into the lab and I'm trying to figure out like what I want to do with the bagel flavor, if I can get it to taste like the thing, but chew like a bagel, then I've won. Like to me, that's a home run. And so the creativity comes from the team. The creativity comes from like outside places. I was having dinner with friends probably 8 months ago, and we were having potato rolls with our hamburgers. And he's like, "Have you ever thought about making a potato bagel?" I was like, "No, that could be a good idea. I should try that." I was like, "But the corn bagel didn't work out too good. People didn't love the idea of like a cornbread bagel." And he's like, "Yeah, but like I
That
think
sounds
like
delicious, by the way. I'll
we've
have to,
we've
yeah, if you have
we've
any spare ones, you can send
we've
them our
perfected that
way.
one. So the potato bagel, I was like, I think a potato bagel seems kind of bland, but I love loaded baked potatoes. I was like, why don't
Mm.
we make a loaded baked potato? So we started going into the kitchen trying to figure out how do we make a bagel taste like a loaded baked potato. And it turns out that if you use a green onion dough and you top it with salt, bacon, and cheddar cheese, when you bite into it with chive and onion cream cheese, it's just like eating a loaded baked potato with sour cream. It's like just so good. Um, and that creativity comes from when we were early days and we were selling online from home, we'd sell out in like 30 seconds. Like our site, we would lock our site down, we'd load inventory, open the site up like Taylor Swift tickets, and boom, they'd sell out. And so once we got into the store, like having a store, like selling out, it's like not cute anymore. People wanted bagels. They want you to have them. So we increased production. We always had bagels, and like the scarcity was less there. But these unique flavors were the ones that became scarce. And so the bagel of the day was created. And so every day we offer a different bagel of the day in every store. And we release that menu still to this day, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. So you can kind of see ahead what's coming, and it's flavors like loaded baked potato or churro. I think this week we're doing a bagel that is lemon blueberry. So it's like it tastes like a blueberry muffin.
Ooh, that
Tastes like a
one's
so
my
delicious.
my wife Dana. That's two of her favorite flavors, so that's got
Oh,
her
it's a
name written all
perfect
over it.
combination. Yeah, yeah. So that's where that comes from. And again, it's like it's me, my team, it's Danielle, it's inspiration from wherever we might be. Like, oh, that could be a bagel. And so we just try.
What's like what's an example of like one of the most random ways that you got inspiration that turned into an actual bagel you offer?
Um, so okay, this is wild, but I over the during the pandemic there was a app. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Clubhouse. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah, yeah.
Clubhouse. Do you remember
Oh, I was just
Clubhouse?
thinking about that the other day. Yeah,
Oh,
it's crazy how because that was when in podcast production that's when everybody is just like is Clubhouse gonna knock out
yeah,
podcasting,
yeah, yeah,
which is
yeah.
like it's funny to look at it now,
It's
but
like, yeah,
go
Clubhouse
go ahead.
what? Yeah, anyway, so I jumped on Clubhouse and I'm in like one of the rooms, whatever they called them. And I happen to be in the room with the guys from Food Beast. And they're like
Mm.
reviewing Instagram pages and they're talking about it. And I'm talking to Eli and I'm talking to the creative director. And they're like, hey, your page looks great, but your food needs to do more. And they're like, do more video, less pictures of static bagels, more pictures of food doing things. And so I started doing that, and I started following them, and I built like a little relationship with Eli, and he does this thing where he like eats a bean and cheese burrito like every day, like bean and cheese, like trying every bean and cheese burrito day 300 out of whatever. And so I was like, oh, I should try to make a bean and cheese bagel. That'd be awesome. And I tried, and it was not there yet. So, but so like
Eh,
inspiration comes from all places, like, other creators. It can come from, a meal you have. I had a great I had a waffle at a restaurant in Las Vegas that was made with bacon and chive, and it was absolutely delicious. And it's like, so a bacon and chive bagel definitely, got tested. And so it's just fun to find that inspiration from other places. Yeah,
I love the people talk about putting on your creativity hat. I feel like you constantly are have your hands affixed in creativity dough. So
100%.
nicely done. And then the other aspect that's really create well, one of the other aspects about your brand that's really creative and differentiated is I think you've done a really great job of like having a really fun and creative culture and letting that flow through to like all the storefronts as well. So like I've heard stories about how, it's like you kind of joke around with customers and give customers nicknames and things like that. And um can you speak a little bit about kind of like the culture that you go for and how you make sure that, in each expansion that you do, um, you have fun with it?
Yeah, 100%. I think when we started this business and I was documenting my journey in bagel making on social media, it was authentically who I was. And so as that story became more about us in the shop and building it and customers coming in, like uh, we have, Salt Alex. He comes in every day, he gets two salt bagels and a cold brew coffee. And it's like when we rolled out our mobile app and we asked him to be a beta tester, he put his name in as Salt Alex. And so it's like it's just fun to like know that we have this connection with our customer. We teach that, and that's like the magic to the shop, right? Like when you have this like place that you go that like people know who you are, they know your order, they feel comfortable coming there, that makes them want to come back, they come more frequently, trips are increased, revenues increase. It's like it's great for business, right? But it also is a space that the community can become a part of. And so we really ask our franchisees as we're expanding to be involved in their community, to be looking out for hiring people who are going to have that engaging communication, want to be talking to their customers, want to be finding a way to make nicknames for people when they come in. So,
By the way, Salt Alex is would be a great nickname for what we call my one of my best friends, Alex, when his New York sports teams lose
oh, so
because lots of
salty.
salt.
Must be a Mets fan.
Actually, he's Yankees, but
Oh,
lots of yeah.
yeah,
We,
lots
we
of
don't we
yeah,
don't
yeah,
need to
yeah.
get into all that. Um, well, actually, the Jets is actually where it. Yeah. So,
Tough.
in addition to that sort of fun vibe, it kind of, I mean, first of all, you're differentiating with your name, Jeff's Bagel Run. Can you hit on that real quick? How that idea or phrase can't be a
Yeah, for
reality?
sure. Yeah, we Jeff's Bagel Run was just like Saturday mornings we would go on a bagel run. We would run out to the bagel shop, grab bagels, come back because that's we also remember as kids like going to a bagel shop, which was usually like a window and like some old grumpy guy handing you a bag of bagels. It wasn't like the shops right? Like it wasn't like the shops you see now today where it's like you're getting like sandwiches and lattes and like it's a different environment, So Jeff's Bagel Run was like, hey, I'm gonna bring you your bagels. I'll deliver them to you. So it's like my little run of bagels to you, and that's where the idea came from and the name started. I think that we still hold true to that. We didn't deliver in the beginning, but now we use some third party support there for delivery with like Uber, DoorDash, things like that. And so people can still get their bagels run to them, or they can come on a bagel run and visit us in the shop. So it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it speaks to like the authenticity of your brand as well. It's like that's that could have been the name right when you just started too, and it's like no, we're going to turn this to the brand name too, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And speaking of like the grumpy competition out there, which I know
Yeah.
we don't compare ourselves to others. We're talking about growing ourselves, but um, you're right. When you think about like a New York bagel place, you think about like these are probably family businesses that have been around for generations, and wake up at 2 in the morning to bake every day and kind of have like no frills, just kind of it's all about the food. Um, I know you don't want to like disrespect those, but you also your brand is like a very different kind of modern approach to that. How do you navigate that? Like making sure that you kind of try to lift the bagel world higher, if you will,
Yeah.
without disrespecting those OG ones.
Yeah. I think like, you know, you gotta tip your hat to the folks who did it before you because, bagels are not new. It's not new. I didn't create a new product. But
You created the world's first bagel. Congratulations.
it's amazing. I had no idea. Yeah, so this, um, yeah, we're not here to disparage our competitors. Like, there's not enough bagels in the world. We need more bagels for everybody. And so I think that if you're building a business that's community based, that's going to be something that, people can get behind and get behind you as the owner of that business, it's going to feel supportive. It's going to employ people. It's going to take care of people in that community, and that it's going to feed people in that community, which is pretty great. We are differentiated. We don't start baking at 2 a.m. We start our bakes closer to 5 a.m. Just so we can have the bare minimum amount of bagels on the rack when we open the door to fulfill any pre-orders and like those early customers. But then we're baking fresh throughout the day. So we are like oven on. We've built a lot of technology behind it, the scenes, so that our bakers can kind of anticipate what's coming and prepare just in time bagels so that you're getting a very fresh baked or even a hot from the oven baked bagel that, most people have never had a hot bagel. Like they said, they think they've had a hot bagel, but they've pulled it out of a plastic bag from a grocery
Right.
store,
The sign says hot. Yeah.
the sign, or like they put it in their toaster at home and they're like, yeah, I eat my bagels hot every morning. I'm like, no, like you don't know, like you haven't been there. So like that fresh baked from the oven bagel is just a different experience. And so in the store, we don't prepare anything. We really truly operate as like a retail bakery. So we don't prepare anything for you. We'll slice your bagel if you ask. We'll slice them. We're kind. All the cream cheese is served on the side, so you can put on as much or as little as you want. And we have a full coffee bar offering, but that's really like the extent of what we offer in the store. So it is a bit different. You can't get a bacon, egg, and cheese with ketchup in our shop, but you can make a mean one when you get home with it. So
Well, as if you don't go through enough rush orders, especially the homemade ones in the early days. Let's wrap things up with rapid fire Q&A. You
let's
ready for
go.
it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get wild. Let's bake some bagels here. The first one ever again. Now, so what is besides the finger stuck in dough story in the early days? What's another just kind of silly, embarrassing story from your journey with the company so far?
Oh, the amount of times I like just ruined dough because I just did like
Because
just
your
the
hands are in it? No, I'm just
no, I
kidding.
mean after once I perfected the dough, it's like I scaling was hard, right? Like so like going from making a little batch of 2 dozen bagels to 6 dozen to 8 dozen, it became hard. So a lot of times like the dough temperature would be getting too hot when I was trying to roll it, and I wouldn't get it refrigerated fast enough to cool down during the fermentation overnight. I come in the next morning, I have these giant puffy overstuffed bagels, and customers would come in. I'm like, hey, sorry, I only have like 12 dozen bagels today because I ruined the other 60 that I made for you because I'm an idiot.
Uh,
So, that was like those parts were embarrassing. That was hard because like when you open your doors to somebody, you're like, hey, I want to serve you. I want to give you something. And I didn't have it for them. That sucked.
all right. What is like a a dream either bagel or cream cheese flavor that for whatever reasons you just don't think it work, or maybe like legally or regulatory you can't do it, but would be a fun one in theory.
Have you had a beef on weck sandwich? Do you know,
Uh
have you know what beef on weck is? It's like
I know what it is. Yeah, wait, where's that from
it's like
again?
a
That's
buffalo.
Buffalo?
It's like a buffalo
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
I don't know if I have. It's possible I did when I was really young, but I've heard about it.
all right. So Weck is like a kind of like a crispy roll, soft inside crispy roll, and it's topped with caraway seeds and salt, and then you put like beef on top with like a au jus, and it's like delicious. It's kind of like a version of a French dip, but it's like smaller. And anyway, so I want to make like a beef on weck bagel. That's kind of what's in R&D right now because I'm trying to infuse this flavor of like beef into bread with that like
Yeah.
salty caraway top on it. So I'm working on that. But I think we're gonna get there. We made a stuffing bagel last year. Like so, we have a bagel at
Oh,
Thanksgiving
I
time.
would
And
love that.
we call it Nana's stuffing, and it tastes just like my mother-in-law's stuffing that she makes at Thanksgiving. It's ridiculous. It's so good.
That's glory. You have some of the like. Let's forget bagels. You have some of the best flavors I've heard of, just like in general. So
And
it's expanding beyond the category too. This is salivating. All right, what is? I know in a previous life, probably seems like many lifetimes ago, several universes ago. Um, you've worked for some of like the biggest brands out there today, like Target, Adidas, the North Face, Apple. What is it about like so like brands that are that big? Is there like a consistent thing about those brands or those companies that you notice that maybe hints to why they're so big and successful?
I think they have a great brand identity. They just like you know exactly who they are based on the logo. You know exactly who they are when you walk into that shop. The feeling of that experience is the same or very similar. You know, Target's a huge 1,600 stores. They have tons of stores. It's hard, but like I think when you walk into a Target store, you sort of have an idea of what to expect from a shopping experience. When you walk into Apple, you know what you're getting. When you buy something from the North Face, you have an expectation for the quality or performance. And so that brand and that like high level of brand execution, I think, is what differentiates them.
Yeah, that's a great answer because actually, probably when I was rattling those off, those of you listening and watching are instantly thinking of like the logo when you first think of it. So yeah, identity is everything. All right, and then last one. I've been very curious about this from the very beginning. How do you stay in shape when eating so many bagels and taste testing so many bagels?
Oh, I try to limit myself to one bagel a day, and that's it. If I do a bagel a
Keeps the
day,
doctor away. That's
keep one
the
bagel a
saying.
day,
That's the
keeps the
new saying.
doctor away. I think I also try to pair it with like a well-rounded diet the rest of the time. So lots of protein and vegetables when I'm not eating the bagels. But there's also been plenty of 3 or 4 bagel days in my in recent days. So it's fine too. So
I don't blame you. That's yeah, you're in
they're
a very
delicious. So good.
dangerous position. But I just when you were talking through the when you started making like several batches a day, I'm like, oh my god, how many of these are being eaten per day?
We ate so many. We ate
Like
so many bagels. It was so painful.
somebody has to taste test them.
It's a tough job.
Well, Jeff's Bagel Run, the Jeff. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for all you do and all the crazy, fun, wild experimentation that you do.
Thank you.
Really, just big fan of your brand, and if I could, I would have one of your bagels every day too. But no, thank you so much. Where's the best place for people to try out your
Yeah.
bagels or learn more about you or your brand?
I think you can find us everywhere at Jeff's Bagel Run. It's all the platforms. jeffsbagelrun.com is where we have our website. Highly recommend you download our mobile app, either in your Apple App Store or your Google Play Store. It's there and available. That give you all your bagels of the day and keep you up to date on what's happening.
Awesome. And then last thing, final thoughts. Stage is yours. It could be a quote. I usually say words to live by, but I think it's words to is it need dough by or is it roll dough by? Words to bagel by.
Something
Send
to
us home
roll.
here.
We could roll with it. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to something I alluded to earlier. I think it's I can't remember who the quote's attributed to, but comparison is a thief of joy. So try not to compare yourself too much. Enjoy your life. It's pretty good.
Bring on the bongos.